let's overcome hatred with love. Try it. You know, because God gives you the power to confound the system. When you hate your enemy, that's nothing new. Let me give you an example. Somebody hates you. They do things against you. What's your natural reaction? You hate them back. You hate them back. So we hate them. Why? Because they hate us. They're hateful people. So how am I going to respond? I hate them back. Well, that's natural, and that happens all the time. But wait a minute. You're coming against hate with hate. You're trying to cast out Satan with Satan. Or somebody speaking against you, you find out. They're speaking against you. That's terrible. They're gossiping. Why? Well, what do? You speak against them. Wait a minute. You're doing the same thing. That's casting out Satan by Satan. Or somebody's not loving you. You know, there's not enough love here. You know, you have people in the Lord. It doesn't matter who. You know, there's not enough love. People don't love me. Well, when you're saying that, people should love me. You're not loving anybody. You're angry at people. So you're responding to the lack of love with more lack of love. But the point is, if you react to evil with evil, that's all you're going to be losing. That's it. Like we should know it in our head, but we get fooled by this because Satan loves this. You cannot fight darkness with darkness. You can't fight hatred with hatred. You can't fight sin with sin. You can't fight condemnation by condemning them. You can't overcome the yourself, by yourself, with yourself. You can't cast out Satan with Satan. And yet the answer is in his reply. When it's real, it seems so simple, it's so revolutionary. It seems it's the opposite of the way we think, because we answer in kind. We tend to. But Messiah says, no, I cast out the spirit of darkness by the spirit of light, by the Spirit of God. So here's the principle. How do you overcome anything? Anything that's dark? You do it not in kind, you do it by its opposite. What's the opposite of Satan? God, in a sense. What do you cast an evil spirit out? By the Spirit of God. You cast out evil, no matter where it is in your life, or darkness, by its opposite. Let's look at it now. Let's see how it goes. You're dealing with hate. Somebody hates you. Natural response, I hate him back. But how do you cast out Satan that way you don't? How do you cast it out? What's the opposite of hate? Love. What does Jesus say? He said, love your enemy. That is not natural because we hate our enemy. That's why they're our enemy and we're the enemy. But when you do that, you're actually you're becoming like your enemy. It makes no sense. But he says the way you break it, love your enemy. Somebody takes your coat, give him another one. That person hates you, give him a gift. Love your enemy, not because you're weak, because you're strong. Love them because you have something better than they have. Put yourself in their place. You know what happens when you love your enemy? First thing is to you. All of a sudden, you don't fear them. You don't have anxiety anymore. You're actually loving them. It just casts it out. You're dealing with hurt. People hurt you. Okay, everybody gets hurt. What's the opposite of hurt? Healing. You've been hurt? Hurt people, hurt people. Healed people, heal people. Focus on healing. Focus on other people. Focus on blessing other people. God will bring healing to your own wounds. That's what he does. You're dealing with the flesh. You're trying to overcome your flesh. It's tough to overcome your flesh. You know, I want to stop sinning. I want to stop doing this. All right, we all know it. Everybody deals with it. You know, you try to do it. I'm going to willpower, going to do that, but the flesh is flesh. Why is that hard? Because you can't overcome the flesh with flesh. If it's coming from you, from your strength, that's the flesh. So what's the opposite of flesh? The flesh? The Spirit. How do you overcome the flesh? By getting totally into the Spirit of God. What does it say? The Bible says, walk in the Spirit and you will not fulfill the lust of the flesh. It doesn't say try to fight the lust of the flesh by yourself. It says get into the opposite of it and you will overcome it because the Spirit will overcome that. You're dealing with a lot of bad news. Well, what's your answer? You're going to respond to the bad news? You're going to get angry, get cynical, get fearful, get anxious about it? What's the opposite of bad news? The answer is good news. How do you overcome the world, the bad news in the world, the bad news in your life, or whatever's coming around you? By the good news of God. Get into the good news. Get into the gospel. Stop dwelling on the problem. Start dwelling on the answer. You know, and that's the opposite, because when we're in a problem, we tend to dwell more on the problem. The problem keeps us dwelling on the problem, and that's the natural way, but it's the revolutionary way to say, forget the problem. I'm going to dwell on the answer now. And then by that power. You know, we were on one tour in the early days in Jerusalem. We were in the house of Caiaphas, where they kept Jesus. They kept Yeshua. And we do know, we have the evidence there that this was the house of the high priest, so he would have been there. And there's a courtyard out there where Peter would have denied the Lord. And I'm not going to go into it, but it's amazing. I always say, they have a whole statue of him messing up. You know, but we won't go into that. So there's a dungeon, and we go down to the dungeon where people then remember what the Lord did for them, you know, and they're in the dungeon, and we're having a great time. But then there's there's only one stair. It's like a stone staircase that comes down into the dungeon, and we're all down. But there's this group up there, and they're getting really angry that we're taking time. They're getting angry. I don't think they were believers, but I mean, nominal Christian probably, but they're angry. We're hearing like noises, you know, and we're about 50 angry people on that staircase. And we have to go up that staircase. And so, you know, we got to go up. And I said to the people, I said, when you go up, thank each of them for being so patient, for waiting for us. So they go up, and our people, oh, thank you, sorry, thank you. I'm the last person. By the time I go up, all these people are smiling and loving and beautiful. They're practically thanking me for taking too much time. I mean, if there were 2 more people, they would have given me an award at the end, you know? But instead of reacting to that, which is the natural thing, we said, let's not react to it. Let's act upon it. Let's overcome hatred with love. Try it. You know, because God gives you the power to confound the system. When you hate your enemy, that's nothing new. That's the system. When you love your enemy, you're confounding them. When you bless someone curses you, curse them back, okay, makes sense. Bless them, it doesn't make sense, confounds the whole system. You can transform them. But then you see, you're not a mirror in the world, you're a light in the world. You overcome by the opposite. You're dealing with sin, and maybe you're focusing on your sin. Well, listen, that's part of repentance, but it doesn't give you the power. You're not going to overcome your sin or your brother's sin or your sister's sin by focusing on the sin. The more you focus on the sin, the worse you get. How do you overcome sin? By focusing on the opposite of sin, God. You fill yourself up with God. You cannot overcome by yourself. You got to fill yourself with God, and that will overcome the sin. Focus on that. You're dealing with selfishness. It's hard to overcome selfishness with yourself. But with God, you can, because you move from a self-centered life to a you-centered life, God. When you focus on God, you can overcome anything. There was a man in a communist prison who they had them terrorize the women prisoners. You know, there were Christians there and for their faith, and this man was abused from childhood, this monster of a man. And he would rape them. Terrorize them. And one day he approached this Christian woman to do that, to terrorize her. But instead of cowering from her, she approached him. And he said, "Aren't you afraid?" He said, "I'm not afraid." They said, "Well, how can you not be afraid? What about to?" He said, I see you as a child. I see you've been mistreated. To become as you are now, that's not who God made you to be. You were never meant to be this person. You weren't meant to terrorize women. You were meant to love. And she's going on, and it starts breaking. He starts cracking. His defenses crack. He didn't overcome her, she overcame him. And she ended up leading him in a prayer to receive the Lord. She ended up discipling him. She was not overcome by evil. Be not overcome by evil. Overcome evil with good. Be not overcome with evil, you fight back evil, but you're overcoming it with the opposite. You're dealing with rejection? How about forgetting about that? Because you know what? It doesn't matter how much you were rejected. Everybody's been rejected. It doesn't matter because now God has accepted you. God accepting you is so much more important than anybody who had issues and rejected you. People are people. They got their own issues. They were rejected. What's the opposite of rejection? Acceptance. That I dwell on the acceptance of God. I fill myself up. It says, but now you are beloved children. You are beloved children. You're not here on earth to get people to accept you. You don't need that. You have God who accepted you. You are here not to get acceptance. You're here to give acceptance. You're here to give the acceptance of God that people can get saved. You're dealing with the past. Okay, how do we overcome the past? What's the opposite of the past? You could say the future, but really it's the present. How do you overcome the past? Not by dwelling on the past. Be on the present now. You overcome the past, what wasn't there, by what is there now in your life, by all the blessings of God that are now here in the present now. The word presence comes from present. You won't find God's presence by dwelling in the past. You'll find his presence in the present. And that is more powerful than anything. Whatever was done to you, what God did is so much more. Hi, I'm Jonathan Cahn, and I hope you were blessed with the video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Feel free to share your reactions with your comments and how you were blessed, and share this video with your friends. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.